Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another week of Ride and Learn with Tim. The Lord taught me these lessons at different times, but you know how God does things, that He knows how to orchestrate things so that it's line upon line, precept upon precept. Remember what I talked about last week and 2 weeks ago? You not being damaged good. Of the things that are needed for us to enter into our inheritance is to become matured, and then there's the issue of the appointed time, which we don't have control over. It brought to my mind something else that He had taught me about appointed times, using the same story but in a completely different way. And the scripture, Acts chapter 7 verses 17 to 19 in the KJV version says, "But when the time of the promise drew near, which God had sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt, till another king arose which knew not Joseph. The same dealt subtly with our kindred, and evil entreated our fathers, so that they cast out their young children, to the end that they might not live." And because many of us, the problem is not that God is not working, is because we are not cognizant, we are not seeing the patterns, or even if we're seeing it, we are misinterpreting what we are seeing, right? And so God was teaching me that certain things happen when the appointed time for a thing that He has spoken about comes. And if we know the principle, then we'll be able to interpret it correctly when those things are happening in our own lives, right? So just taking it from verse 17 of the scripture that I just read, "But when the time of the promise drew near, which God had sworn to Abraham." First thing the Lord pointed out to me is that He keeps tabs, right? He hasn't forgotten His promise. At this time, even the children of Israel themselves, right, they were not keeping tabs, because this time of promise that drew near, it wasn't the 400th year or 430th year. But this was about the time just before Moses was born. They themselves were not keeping tabs of the time, but the one who made the promise was conscious and cognizant of the time. They didn't know the time for the fulfillment of the promise that was given to their ancestor Abraham, but the one who made the promise knew that it was close to the time when the promise He had made was to be fulfilled. Okay, and so the thing here is that we need to fully understand and settle in our minds the character of God. God is not the kind of person who makes a promise and then hopes that you don't remember so that He doesn't have to fulfill it. No, even when you don't remember, He remembers what He promised you. So He's not the kind of God that hopes that you don't hold Him to what He's promised you so that He doesn't fulfill it. In fact, in this particular instance, the specific people He made the promises to were dead, but yet God still fulfilled the promise He made to them.